The most productive thing Jesus did was disappear. That's right. At the height of his influence, crowds multiplying, people literally being healed, momentum at all-time highs, he walked away. And if you're a high performer who can't stop grinding, what he did next is going to expose the lie you and your entire identity has been built on. Welcome back to Shifts and Ladders. You know who it is. I'm Ryan Robinson. If you are new here, this show is for high performers who look successful on the outside, but feel fragmented on the inside. Every episode, we take one pattern from the life of Jesus and one principle from process improvement methodology and show you how to stop performing and start becoming whole. Today, we're dismantling one of the biggest lies in culture, let alone high performers and leaders, that rest is a reward earned after the work is done. And by the end of this episode, I'm going to give you two practices that will almost feel impossible if you're a real high performer, but it's not impossible. You could do it. Like, you can do this. And that's exactly how you'll know you need them. All right, let's get into it. All right, so Luke chapter 5, verses 15 through 16 is going to be our reference here. Yet the news about him spread all the more, so that the crowds came to hear him and to be healed of their sicknesses. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. I need you to catch this sequence here, okay? The demand was increasing. Crowds were growing. The need was real. And people are literally being healed. Lines are literally forming for just a touch from Jesus. And in the middle of maximum momentum, Jesus withdrew. He bounces. He didn't wait until he was burned out. He didn't push through until the ministry season had ended. He didn't say, I'll rest when I'm dead. Hashtag team no sleep. I think you might have heard this a time or two from people in culture, but he withdrew while the opportunity was still there. So for most high performers or leaders like myself, this is incomprehensible. You can't even fathom leaving in the middle of when things are getting good. We've been trained to capitalize on the momentum. Strike while the iron's hot. Sleep when you're dead. But Jesus understood something that we miss. I need you to tune in here, okay? Your capacity to give is directly tied to your willingness to receive. Yeah. I'm going to say it again for the people in the back, okay? Your capacity to give is directly tied to your willingness to receive. Now, here's what this is. Well, I'm going to get personal here for a minute. Personal and uncomfortable. So just hang with me for a minute. A few years ago, I was that guy running full speed. Corporate leadership, ministry on the weekends, building a side business, creating content, blogging, when blogging was a thing. And I told myself I was being faithful. I didn't miss church. I didn't miss anything really. That was rewarding. I thought that was rewarding for what God gave to me to do. And the rest was for people who didn't have a calling as big as mine. So I thought I was exempt from all of this stuff. And then, just like that, the machine broke. Not slowly, not without warning signs. It was literally catastrophic failure. Sickness, marriage on the edge, identity shattered in pieces on the floor. Now, I'll tell you, I was actually hospitalized, to be honest with you. And lying in that hospital bed, I had realized something I now teach every leader I coach. The breakdown always comes. The only variable is whether you choose the time and the terms or whether it chooses you. Yeah. Now, you see, I told you, I don't do karate. I'm a black belt process improvement guy. And this is something I knew, but I didn't apply to my life. And we have a concept of preventative maintenance. You might go to the doctor for preventative maintenance, for your annual checkups and shots and all that kind of stuff. So any machine that runs continuously will eventually break. That's where the concept comes from. It's not a matter of if, but when. Components wear down, tolerance slips, and systems degrade. If it is a machine, it's going to break down. Smart operations don't wait for the breakdown. They schedule the downtime. They take the machine offline before it fails, not because they can afford to stop, but because they can't afford the cost of catastrophic failure. What if the machine has to be replaced? What if it's on back order? Everything is going to shut down. Now, believe it or not, your soul operates the same way. So the question isn't, can I afford to rest? The question is, can I afford the cost of breaking down? Because look at the difference here. A planned sabbatical looks very different than a forced medical leave. I'm going to just let that sit. A strategic withdrawal looks very different from a marriage in crisis. A proactive boundary looks very different from burning out, crashing out on the stage where everyone's watching. We've seen over the last few months very prominent people crash out right in front of our eyes. Now, Jesus wasn't modeling weakness. He was modeling the very thing and the most sophisticated operational strategy in history: scheduling the downtime before a system failure. Now, there's another passage that will take us even deeper. This is Mark chapter 1, starting at verse 35. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him, and when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Jesus replied, "Let us go somewhere else, to a nearby village, so I can preach there also. That is why I have come." Read that again, okay? Everyone was looking for him. The need was real. The demand was legitimate. And Jesus said no. Not from selfishness, but from clarity. He knew his assignment. He knew what he was actually called to do and refused to let the urgency of others' expectations override the priority of his purpose. That right there, we call that a lean principle. It's called eliminating waste. But specifically, the waste of overprocessing, doing work that doesn't align with the actual mission, no matter how good and how noble that work appears to be. You can think back possibly that you have maybe done some overprocessing, that you have possibly done some things that didn't align with what you really enjoyed doing, but you just did it anyway. And Jesus had the perfect scope of discipline. He knew that it was in scope for his life. He knew what was in scope, what wasn't. And everything else, no matter how urgent, no matter how many people were asking, was out of scope. Now, I want you to understand this. Sometimes we get inundated with a whole bunch of opportunities. And eventually, opportunities can become distractions if we don't have criteria in place. Now, this is what the psalmist said or meant in Psalm 46, verse 10. "Be still and know that I am God." That word in Hebrew is rapha. It doesn't mean to sit quietly, but it means to actually let go. It means to release. It means to stop striving. It's not passive, but it's strategic. It's the recognition that your identity doesn't come from your output. Somebody needs to hear that. That your work isn't measured by your availability, that you can stop producing without disappearing. And I think that it's real fear that pops up when we have to stop producing, isn't it? For a high performer, rest feels like erasure. It doesn't make sense. If I'm not producing, do I even exist? If I'm not needed, am I even valuable? But that in itself is not a productivity problem. It's actually an identity crisis wearing a work ethic costume. And here's what I've learned. And I'm going to tell you, I've learned it the hard way. All right. Hurry isn't the same as busyness. Busyness is having a lot to do. That's your calendar. Hurry is the internal pressure that won't let you stop. It's the anxiety when you're not producing. It's the guilt when you choose to rest. It's the compulsion, check this out, to look at your email at 11 p.m. just because what if something happened and I'm not ready for it? I think I drove right down somebody's street with that one. Hurry is a soul condition and it's incompatible with integration. Because here's the truth. You cannot hear your own genius if the noise on the floor is too high or too loud. You cannot discern your next move if you never stop moving. You cannot receive from God if your hands are too full with your own striving and you're not open to what God is going to give you. If you can't let go of what you have in anticipation for what God will give you, that's going to hit you. And if all of this hit you just now, stay with me for a minute, because that's what I'm about to give. I'm about to give you something on how to fix it. All right. Okay. Now we've got to this. Now we've got the soul understanding. Now let's get practical. Now I told you at the top of the podcast, I'd give you two practices that would almost feel impossible to you. That's what I call a Sabbath protocol, or just plain Sabbath. I'm going to walk you through both of them right now, okay? Once a week, same day, same time, you are completely disconnected from work and digital noise for 24 hours. Somebody was like, ooh, I felt it. No email, no Slack, no just checking one thing. Your phone goes in the drawer, laptop stays closed. It isn't about legalism. I wanted to make sure this is clear. You don't do this from legalism. This is about creating a container where you can actually hear yourself think. First time I did this, I went muy loco. I was like, oh my God. Just too much noise, too many inputs. I didn't know what to do without an input happening. So I need you to do this, because I recognize when you can't hear your own voice, you can't hear from God, period. If you can't hear you definitely can't hear from God. So where your identity gets a chance to exist is apart from your productivity and from the noise. And most high performers and leaders have never done this. We call it going to church, but we actually don't get quiet. We don't have 24 hours with some kind or some form of output validation that makes us feel important. And we have no idea how much anxiety it is, or I have going on in my life, until I actually try going 24 hours with somebody asking for, or me producing some kind of output. Take a deep breath. It's all right. Be all right. So here's what's going to happen when you do this. Within the first couple hours, you're going to feel a pull, like an itch. Your brain is going to manufacture some kind of urgency. Like, what if somebody needs me? Or what if I'm missing something? That pull, that's not your responsibility. That's dependency. And naming it is the first step to breaking it. It's like somebody addicted, having an itch. Like, I gotta figure something out. I gotta do something. That's the first practice. Number 2, holy hours. This one is daily. You identify 2 hours or just 15 minutes, whatever you can do. But ideally in the morning when you are unreachable, not available, but trying to focus. You're literally unreachable. This is your deep work time, your prayer time, your strategic thinking time. It's protected like the Holy of Holies. No one gets in without an explicit invitation. Now, the world is going to push back on this. Your boss, your team, your family, notifications. Everybody's got a claim to your time, and they're going to test it. But Nehemiah 4:17 describes how the Israelites rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem. It says, those who carried materials did their work with one hand and held a weapon in the other. Your time is the wall. The world will try to tear it down, and you must be willing to defend it. It means having the conversation with your team. I'm available from 6 to 9 a.m. That means turning off notifications, not silencing them, off. That means accepting that some people will be frustrated, and that's okay. Jesus frustrated people too, remember? Now everyone's going to be looking for you, and he's still, people were looking for Jesus, and still he walked the other way. Clarity over applause, assignment over availability. You need to choose that every time. All right. Ooh, that's a lot, but let me bring this home. All right. Rest isn't just the opposite of productivity. It's the foundation of sustainable productivity. Jesus withdrew so he could continue. The withdrawal wasn't weakness. It's strategic. It's preventative maintenance on the most important system in the universe. Jesus protected his connection to the Father. Now, if you've been running on fumes, hear me. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you need more discipline. It's not because you've been operating without scheduled downtime. You can find all kinds of things online, time management, time blocking, all the things. The machine can start to show strain no matter what system or thing you put in place. But you can feel it coming though. A shorter fuse, foggier thinking, feeling like you're present everywhere, but where you actually need to be present in. You're here, but you're nowhere. That's not a motivation issue. That is a maintenance issue. That is a Sabbath issue. And Jesus already gave you the solution, how to do it. Now, here's the challenge this week, all right? Try the 24-hour stop. Try it on the weekend. Just once, pick a day, tell people who need to know, and go dark. Notice what comes up, the anxiety, the compulsion to check, the voice that says you can't afford to stop. That voice, that's the enemy's pitch to you from Matthew chapter 4, dressed in productive clothing. It's the deal that says you have to, and you can have all the kingdoms of the world if you never stop striving. But Jesus rejected that deal. And because he did, so can you. So let me give you a little bit about the next episode. I'm excited. This one's a little longer. We're going to talk about and go after the most counterproductive habit high performers have. It's the inability to say no. And why Jesus' approach to boundaries might be the most lean thing he ever did. And if you have not taken the integration score test yet, the integration gap test, the link is in the description. It's free. It's 2 minutes. And it'll show you exactly what area in your life is most at risk for breakdown right now. So don't skip it. If this podcast episode hits you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. You know who they are. They're the ones who's always busy, always grinding, always telling you they're fine when they're not. Just in case you need a profile, I just gave you one. I'm Ryan Robinson. This is Shifts and Ladders. Stop striving and start building. And we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.